Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and are definitely having yourselves an awesome weekend out there so far. Got you a big update this evening, and certainly appreciate you folks joining me this evening as we discuss a few topics. One of the biggest topic in this evening's video is going to be discussing the potential in the Gulf of Mexico over the next few days as we get deeper into this week. And then towards the end of the week into the weekend, all models are liking the idea of some kind of low pressure being around the Gulf of Mexico. This might slide over Florida, get off the coast of the southeast. We got to figure this one out. I can tell you models really like this, and the pattern supports this, and it will continue to support this. It's definitely an El Nino look, meaning a lot of energy is active in the southern jet. The southern jet is active, and which basically means you could have a lot of activity in the south, and that is because you're going to have an upper ridge that is really dominating the pattern in the northern portion of the country, like the Midwest, the Great Lakes region, even the Ohio Valley, portions of the Northeast, and that's why you guys have been so dry over the last several days. We'll discuss that in a little bit more detail in this video. We'll talk about how below average temperatures will continue into June, but guys, that does not necessarily mean it's going to be too cold to swim or anything like that. We'll talk about what that means also, and then we'll talk about how the pattern will remain for severe weather across the high plains. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if you notice, if you watched the video this morning or the day before, I got rid of the screen behind me. I just don't like it too much. I don't know. I like more of the natural approach, and I can promise you guys, here in the future with this channel, we're going to renovate the house, or either we're going to move, one or the other, and I'm going to have a room that's designated specifically for my YouTube channel, like a little office, not a huge room or anything, but an office. And I'm going to have something very appealing in the back. One day we're going to have to transition from the backdrop being my room, and I know that turns off certain people. I'm sure there's a lot of people who jump on my videos for the first time and they immediately see my setup and the backdrop being my bed ends, like immediately clicks right back off. Some people like more of the professional look. Some people like more of the look I do, and then some people are right in between. Doesn't really matter either way, but regardless, I appreciate everybody's opinions. I appreciate you guys, most people accepting who I am and what I bring to the table regardless, and I certainly appreciate all the love, guys. I really do. It means the world. I value guys' opinion. Of course, if you present it respectfully, like most people on the channel do, but, occasionally you got somebody who we call them keyboard cowboys, right? Just wants to take the more disrespectful approach. But let's get off that. With that being said, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below so I can do that. I can pray over it, and so other folks can do so too. So let's get talking. Let's go rolling here. We look at the entire country as a whole, and you see this spin. Your eyes immediately kind of go to this spin. I mean, if you were just to look at this, you would say, Mitch, that is definitely a tropical storm that made landfall. But I mean, the hood looks great, right? We would say this is the hood of the system. What we see at face value, right? If you were to look at the car, look at a car and say, that's a nice looking hood. It's a nice looking vehicle. But if you open the hood of this, there's no engine, right? So it might be a poor comparison or whatever. But if you look under the hood of this beautiful swirl, it's very void of convection, showers and storms. Now, there is rain associated with it, but there's not a lot. There's not much under the hood, right? It looks great on satellite, but outside of that, it's not doing a whole lot but producing annoying clouds and some showers and things like that. So we got that. This will continue to meander around the southeast, affect the weather really over the next 2 days. But I do think we can improve the weather a little bit over the next day or so. And then we have this ridging right over here, high pressure up here to the north. And this is just continuing to keep you guys high and dry up here in this region. And then you still got the storm development that continues to pop off, the low-level fetch of moisture up into the high plains that continues to provide the ingredients for storm development anywhere from the southern high plains of western Texas, eastern New Mexico, all the way up through eastern Colorado, all the way up into sections of eastern Wyoming and eastern Montana, okay, and portions of the western Dakotas. So that's why you have these big explosion of storms, looks like just dots that explode right here on the map. That is storm development ongoing. But a lot of twisting and turning of the atmosphere, clashing of different directional pools in the atmosphere out there just due to this cutoff low or low pressure in general that made landfall today. But you look at the general pattern. What you're looking at here is higher heights and lower heights. Lower heights show up in the blues. Higher heights show up in the reds. And a lot of times you can look at the blues and say that's below average temperatures, especially in the winter. And you can look at the reds and that's above average temperatures. Okay, but there's more that goes into it than that. Okay, blues could signal a troughing, a low pressure, some kind of cutoff low, a low pressure in general, troughing, cold fronts. The reds is high pressure. So a ridge of high pressure is up here, and you got a flow that kind of moves around this red area or orange area, kind of like this, right? So you see this blue right over the Carolinas and the Southeast, right? That is our low pressure. That's right over the Southeast right now. You continue to keep this going. This ridging up here in Canada, which is why you're so warm and dry up in Canada, and you're pretty warm into the Great Lakes region. You've made a quick transition to summer-like temperatures up here. And this is why you will continue to kind of have this pattern. We get into tomorrow, your Memorial Day. You're getting into Tuesday. You notice the lower heights continue to show up down here. Another way you can look at this, if you see the blue on your map, think of that as there's a good bit of energy down here. There's a lot of precipitation probably, and that is because the blue symbolizes some kind of low pressure down here, the potential for low pressure. Lower heights signify that. And you continue to have this blocking pattern over this portion of the country. So you keep this going. In general, all the energy, the blues, even when you don't see blue, that doesn't mean there's no precipitation falling, but basically, this ridging of high pressure is a blocking pattern. Big ridge right all the way up here. Okay, so everything's staying down south. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to have showers and storms where there's orange on the map. That does not what it means. There's so much more that goes to it. There's different flows and different levels of the atmosphere. You know, if you were to look at the upper level pattern as far as directional winds, you would say, you know, there's no way that moisture is getting up here, but if it's a low-level flow, you're getting low-level moisture pulled all the way up into the high plains, and that's why you continue to have the ingredients for severe weather. But you look at the blue down here, right? So that tells me there's activity down into the Gulf of Mexico. So you notice it gets darker and darker right into this region right here. So you're starting to get into late Thursday into Friday. You continue to have this ridge that is dominating Canada and influencing the pattern, remaining dry up here in the Great Lakes region. Okay, you guys are going to remain dry. There's a lot of people in the comments and even on Twitter, social media, Facebook that continue to say, hey, Mitch, you know, it is dry in Illinois. It's getting very dry in Wisconsin. Definitely portions of the Midwest is starting to dry out quickly after basically being the entire roadway of storm after storm over the winter and spring. That is not the case anymore. But you see the blue down here? This screams some kind of low pressure down here, cut off lows, because the flow and the southern jet is definitely heightened. It's going crazy down here. So you watch, I mean, look at the dark blue. This is telling me there's going to be some kind of low pressure down here into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. And we continue to watch this, and the high pressure continues to dominate. And then I would watch for some kind of cold front. Basically, as this ridge shifts west, this could potentially open the door for some troughing over the northeast, the eastern U.S., and that is why below average temperatures continue to show up over the eastern and southern U.S. You know, anytime when you normally have blue, you're going to have below average temperatures, and whether that's due to the fact that you got a trough of low pressure, you know, low pressure showers and storms, or a cold front, whatever it may be, you're going to have lower than average temperatures, below average temperatures. We'll talk more about that here in a second, but how does that reflect to the Gulf of Mexico? Let's talk about this. I wouldn't call it a threat, but the possibility for something emerging in the Gulf of Mexico. So another way to look at this, and we're looking at basically the same thing, right? Lower heights in the Gulf of Mexico, and you start to get more of that darker blue, which symbolizes a higher chance for some kind of low pressure down here, energy down here. Okay, we're getting into Thursday afternoon, and eventually you see an L pop up here sometime Friday morning. This is the European, right? So suddenly you actually are having a low pressure popping up here, 1006 millibar low pressure. It's a weak low pressure, but it's there. Okay, the waters are warm enough for this to become a stronger system. This would have maybe some kind of subtropical origins from it because it's in the Gulf of Mexico. It's not really attached to a front or anything. Okay, the L pops off Friday morning, Friday afternoon. Ignore this. Just focus on this. 1,003 millibar low pressure. Okay, this kind of floats around down here. Lack of any kind of pull to pull it really anywhere. At this point, you stop here. It's around next Saturday morning, right? June 3rd. This is likely bringing a lot of showers and storms to Florida. How much does this strengthen? Will this be here? It's a big question mark. But, I mean, you continue to have darker blues show up, symbolizing a stronger low pressure. And the European wants this to make landfall over Florida. Actually, some reason strengthens this over Florida. At this point, you stop it here. It's a 998, a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure about a week from today. Okay? This is about a week out. So I always say, and this is not always the case, but once you get below 1,000 millibar low pressure, you're pushing in the tropics, right? We're not talking about a land cyclone or anything like that. But when it's a tropical system, you're pushing tropical storm status. We're going to have tropical storm Arlene. I would lean towards no. But, next Monday morning, it shows a pretty strong low pressure right over Florida. Will that be the case? Not sure. But this would bring, an area of unsettled weather up into Georgia and the Carolinas if this one model solution was correct. Okay, you look at the latest year GFS, which is running right now. We kind of look at the same situation. We'll start off right now. I actually have not looked at the latest GFS, so me and you are looking at it for the first time together. But you continue, and you notice you're getting into midway this week. This is around Wednesday morning, lowering heights down here, which remember symbolizes some kind of trough of low pressure, some kind of low pressure, cutoff low, whatever it may be, an area of unsettled weather. Normally is associated with lower heights, okay, lower pressure. Remember, like low pressure, the lower the pressure in the atmosphere, normally symbolizes some kind of area of unsettled weather. So you keep this going, right? Keep it going. You're starting to get into Thursday evening, Friday morning, and not as much showing up on the GFS. You still got this area. Watch here. Keep going. And, we're getting into next Saturday morning. Here it is. Low pressure pops off. Ignore this. This is the one that's really picking up on here, right on here in the northern Bahamas, just north of the northern Bahamas, right in here. And this really wants to pop it off the coast, the eastern coast of Florida. Where does it go? Well, it kind of drifts north, and this evolves a lot quicker than the European. At this point, we're around Saturday afternoon. Okay, this is just kind of meandering off the coast of the southeast, off the coast of Florida, really. And, it's just sitting here. So remember, I'm looking at this the same time and you are, but I mean, it obviously has a pretty robust looking low pressure right off the eastern side of Florida. So this really gets it going off the coast of the southeast, and you keep this going, and suddenly it makes a landfall as a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure about 7 to 8 days out from right now, about 8 to 9 days out. So it likes the idea also of something going on within the next, I would say, 6 to 10 days. Okay? I think this will end up being a bigger topic here in the coming days. The Canadian model, it symbolizes lowering heights, but it kind of does what the GFS does. But it really wants to pull something kind of out the Caribbean down here, which is kind of weird. Pulls the low pressure out the Caribbean and pulls it into the southwestern Atlantic. So we'll watch all these scenarios. Another great way to look at it that you probably won't see other people looking at it like this is you look at the blend of all models. And you see this weird cutoff. It's because the model doesn't pick up on precipitation down here in Mexico, the Yucatan or anything like that. But another great way to look at this is you keep this going, right? Look how the precipitation increases big time as we get into midweek. Shows a lot of precipitation falling over the Gulf of Mexico. This tells us that the Gulf of Mexico is going to be quite unsettled this week. It's technically this week now, okay? And really wants to bring a lot of heavy rain into Florida. This is just, the blend of all models, and we'll go about 10 days out. And shows a lot of rain falling over the ocean, but it symbolizes that area of kind of unsettled weather down here, right? So what we do know is, I know this is in Celsius. There's not a lot of sea surface temperature maps that show in Fahrenheit. A lot of most, we're in the U.S. We use Fahrenheit, but most everybody else uses Celsius. But just think of 27 to 29 degrees Celsius as in the low 80s in Fahrenheit. So basically, in the Gulf, pretty much all the Gulf of Mexico is in the low 80s. The only area that's not very warm, maybe a tad bit below average, is this area right here in the northeast Gulf of Mexico. And that is probably because a lot of cloud cover from this spinning low pressure, something. There's always micro areas that you got to, pay attention to. But most of the Gulf of Mexico, certainly in the low 80s. We're getting close to the mid 80s, kind of at the southern western tip of Cuba, which typically is one of the warmest parts of the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico in general. But compared to average, we are a degree and a half above average as far as temperatures right now in Celsius, same in Fahrenheit, but obviously not the same number in Fahrenheit, but you get what I'm saying. We are a little bit above average, okay? Now, it's a little cooler off the coast of the Carolinas. Why? Because of our low pressure off the coast of the Carolinas. It turns the waters up. It's been very cool, and it's called upwelling. It basically brings cooler waters to the surface. The same thing that happens in the middle of hurricane season too. So we're definitely a little above average. Not well above average, but a little above average in sea surface temperatures. Another way you can look at this is look at the precipitation output from this. And this is the European, right? So let's back this up a little bit. We'll take it all the way to Thursday morning, right? This Thursday morning, June 1st. A lot of showers and storms right here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. And this pushes over Florida. Friday might be a soggy day in Florida. Watch out for a flooding risk. And then you keep this going, and all of a sudden for your Saturday, more rain, covering up almost the entire state of Florida, a lot of Georgia. This is not a forecast. This could change. And then more unsettled, heavier activity flies over northern Florida, maybe southern sections of Georgia. It's just one output that you got to watch. You look at the latest GFS and what it shows, same kind of scenario. And I mean, hey, this shows what to me looks like an all-out tropical storm getting close to making landfall sometime, about a week out from today. Now, that's not a forecast, so don't say, hey, Mitch said there's going to be a tropical storm making landfall in Georgia and South Carolina early next week. It's not what I'm saying, but it really wants to bring a huge slug of moisture. But look, I'll look at it right here. You got a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure next Monday afternoon. But if you look at the run prior to this, looks totally different, right? That's how much these model runs change. This is the run before. This is the run now. So that should tell you all you need to know, that these models should not be taken as gospel. Okay, we're still trying to figure out the pattern, which I think we are kind of got figured out. But now we got to see if anything's going to come out of it. So another way you look at this, and you'll see me using this a lot more the deeper we get into the year, the deeper we get into hurricane season, is the European Ensemble. It's a run of about 51 runs, or 52, 51, I believe. And each little number you see on your screen, this is for Thursday morning, June 1st, each little number you see on your screen, that is it trying to pick up on low pressure. So it basically takes all 51 runs and throws them into one model run. Okay? So, and this is it, but it shows every model run on this one model run, if that makes any sense. So basically where you see a 0.7, that's 1,007 millibar low pressure. You see a 0.1, 1,001. Remember, kind of the lower the numbers, the more intense this low pressure is. But you keep this going, and where you see like a 98, that's a 998 millibar low pressure. So you're starting to get some stronger members, and as you get into Friday, you have more members showing up here in the Gulf of Mexico. And this area begins to shift east, okay? And then, obviously, we get into Sunday morning, right? A little under a week from today. Pretty huge spread. You got some low pressure showing up here in the northeast Gulf of Mexico, and a lot more off the coast of the southeast. So it is definitely a pattern we need to watch. Okay, there's support here. It's just, is the support going to increase? So I would watch the Gulf of Mexico. I would really watch it. This is the recipe of early season tropical activity. And I can tell you, with us really getting fully entrenched in the El Nino, things getting shunted south, I could see an active early, I could see like a bunch of weak tropical storms, kind of the first half of hurricane season. But we got to watch. That doesn't mean that's going to happen. Temperatures, guys, with the pattern, with ridging way up to the north, kind of dry, hot, stagnant, sinking air, it's going to support above average temperatures from June 3rd to June 7th and between now and then. Okay, this was issued today. So well above average temperatures are predicted up here. You will continue to have that quick start to summer that just happened just like that. Okay, below average temperatures in the southeast and this area of the south, and this is just due to the fact that the southern jet is active. So numerous showers and storms and clouds will keep your temperatures lower. It's not necessarily you're going to have like a freeze or anything like that. It's not what this means. A lot of people look at these maps and they immediately think that's what it means. That's not what it means. You look from June 5th to June 11th, okay? It looks like widespread troughing to me. This is when the pattern could shift, okay? And we could just have some early June cold fronts, especially for the eastern U.S., okay? We're watching this. This is when it gets tricky. We figure out what's going to happen here, but the pattern supports a little bit of a below average start to June. Now, if you're in the South, you're screaming, Mitch, when am I going to be able to swim in my pool? Just because you see blue on the map over the Carolinas, over Virginia, that does not mean it's going to be cold, guys. It's not going to mean that it's going to feel like how it does outside. Remember, this is just a 30 to 40, 40 to 50% chance of below average temperatures. The higher the confidence is, probably this is not what this means, but I take it like this sometimes. The more below average that it's probably going to be. But there's very low confidence on this. But I can tell you, if it's 5 degrees below average in the southeast, for example, on June 5th, it's still going to be pretty warm outside. It's just that time of the year where your average highs are well into the 80s. They start to inch close to 90 as you get later into June. So it's still going to be plenty warm enough to do any outdoor activities that revolve around water. You know what I'm saying? So you look at the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook from June 3rd to June 7th. Because you have that ridge of high pressure dominating the pattern up here, you're going to have a low chance to see any kind of rainfall up here in the Great Lakes region. The Ohio Valley is going to continue to get dry, I think, unfortunately. But down here, there's above average chance, and that's because the southern jet continues to be active. Now, you get to the June 5th to June 11th, still a slight chance to see below average precipitation in the Great Lakes region areas in the Midwest, but you're starting to lose it somewhat, but still just a very El Nino look down here with chances to have above average precipitation down here. We talk about the pattern going forward, guys. I can tell you, and let me go on and back it up to day 2 and day 3. So as far as severe weather, the same general pattern continues. You're going to have a marginal risk of severe weather for tomorrow. So areas of the plains, areas of the high plains are going to have a risk for severe storms for tomorrow for your Memorial Day. So we'll break this down more extensively in the morning. Okay, but it's not going to be a big day of severe weather, I don't think. Same kind of deal for day 3. For Tuesday, there's a chance for severe weather. This is more so east, okay? So you're getting a better low-level fetch of moisture a little bit further east. So very large area, more highly populated area, even though it's not highly populated, but more people kind of live in this area than they probably do in this area right in here. But I might be wrong. I might be totally wrong about that. But anyways, you get what I'm saying. So this is shifted a little bit further east. Same kind of deal. A more broadened fetch of moisture at the low levels, providing a severe weather threat in this dark green area. I could see this both days going to a slight. Now, you go to day 4 through 8, right? It just says predictability too low, but it says a period of increased severe potential may develop over portions of the southern high plains and the central southern Texas days 4 through 6. So it's basically saying what the pattern's setting up. It's very similar, but you could have more of a robust flow aloft. So I would watch basically a late week for more of, I wouldn't use the word significant, but more of a heightened area of severe weather to set up around here, kind of like what you saw last week. So it's going to continue. You're going to continue to have kind of low-end severe threats each day, I think, for the foreseeable future up here with this pattern setting up. And really one of the big reasons here is because of this low-level fetch of moisture continues to kind of go all the way into Canada. And, you keep going here in time. Moisture return does begin to return back into the Gulf states, the Southeast, the Mid-South, but really it's the highest in the plains, and you continue to have a moist flow all the way up through here. So we'll watch. Deep moisture begins to make a return again along the Gulf Coast. A lot of areas down here should be having dew points well into the upper 60s, low 70s for this time of the year, but you notice, we get into the weekend, we got dew points surging well into the 60s, all the way up into Canada, okay? But you still are dealing with more dry air over the eastern U.S., okay? And then you watch for another cold front. This cold front right here, even though it's, 8 to 10 days away, this is what the Climate Prediction Center is picking up on. It really likes the idea of a surge of cold air, cooler air moving in for this portion of the country here in the next 7 to 10 days. So that's all I got, guys. Hope that came in clear for you folks. Hopefully this video gets out. This video took way too long to prepare. So, but anyways, God bless all y'all. Y'all have a great night, and I'll talk to you in the morning.